Hi there, and welcome to this edition of Meet and Geek. My name is Matt. I am joined once again by Robert from Actify. That riveting intro can only mean it's time once again to talk about Active Image Protector.
Well, not just Active Image Protector.
What else are we talking
about? Well, as you know, Matt, and I call you Matt because that's what you call yourself.
It is what I call myself.
The email we did send out, for those of you keeping score at home, an acronymonious approach to ransomware.
Right.
Ransomware. And you're probably just thinking to yourself, didn't we talk about this already?
Well, I think it's been a little while since we've talked. It's been a little while since we've talked about ransomware. I do know
it's been weeks.
It's been about 6 weeks since we've had a Meet and Geek, and I know that because my baby carrots are beginning to sprout in the garden.
I didn't even know you had a garden.
I have a garden. You know why I have a garden?
So you can have
I have a garden so that I don't have to go. So I don't have to go to the supermarket.
I go to the supermarket. Funny you should mention that, Matthew. I go to the supermarket. In fact, I was at the supermarket yesterday to pick up some fresh cilantro because I'm going to be making carne asada again.
Okay.
And as I turned around to find the plastic bags, because I really don't like handling the food that other people may have handled, or I don't want to handle it with my hands because I'm sure people don't want to see me going through and touching every bunch of cilantro there is. So I always like when I pick up my dog food, I put the bag on my hand and I pick up and then pull the bag over. So but as I turned around to look for the bags, the little clear plastic bags that you put the produce in, there was a sign. And the signs on one of the islands that holds fruit all the way around, fruits and vegetables all the way around. And I hope you're sitting down for this because the sign said, "Living on the veg." Whoa.
A Bon Jovi reference?
True story. True story. No, he's living on a prayer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bon Jovi's living on a prayer. I'm shocked and appalled that.
Wow.
Whoa, you went off the deep end on that, and usually you're spot on when it comes to these musical references. Oh my goodness. Okay, folks, don't email. All right. It was just a misstep by Matt. I think maybe he's on
living on the veg.
It's so dumb. It's funny.
That's it.
It's the pink flamingos.
Completely silly.
Yes, it is silly. It is silly. We should do an entire webcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, on advertising slogans that we've seen in and about. One that comes to mind, and I won't. It's a billboard. You realize, of course, billboards have your attention for seconds because you're driving 65, 70 miles an hour on a freeway.
Well, not in Southern California.
It's more like 80, 85.
Yeah.
Which if
you can get up to speed,
it leaves you even less time. Now, if I didn't know my own, if I didn't have a neighbor who was an HVAC guy, I'd call these people because the billboard caught my eye,
right,
and number two, it caught my eye to the point where I could see what the name of the company was, and it was easy to remember. And even if it was very effective. 2 colors. Yellow and black, and the headline on the billboard, the tagline said, "Your wife is hot!" exclamation. And I thought, wow, read my mind. And then it said, "She deserves better. Double repair the air conditioner." It wasn't quite that elaborate, but it got the point.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the name because we're not really
Right.
advertising, but it gave the name, which was 2 initials, and the initials said it was, I'll just say, "We care,"
Okay.
which is easy to remember.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to do. You get their attention, tell them what it is and what it does for them. They kind of did it a little backwards. They got your attention, told you how it's going to benefit them, and then told you who they are. But you've only got seconds to sell this.
It's funny how companies will use acronyms not only to sell their business, but acronyms that have become just accepted. I know what an HVAC is, but I don't think I know what each letter in that acronym actually spells out.
I believe it's heating.
But what's the V?
I don't know what's
heating. Ventilation.
Ventilation sounds.
Ventilation.
That sounds good. Look at that.
Air conditioning.
Look at that. Look at that.
How many other acronyms can you think of that we use every day that we don't think about?
LOL.
LOL. Laugh out loud.
How
about OLED?
OLED. I can't
TVs.
get OLED because I have been studying it since it's before its inception, and I know the DuPonts had a big investment in OLED, is what I refer to it.
Okay.
OLED is just one less syllable. Then OLE. Wait, OL.
All right. What about something that we're using all the time? HDMI.
High definition media interface. And I don't care what anybody tells you, clear picture, 4K, whatever. It means that you can't record.
Very good.
Yes.
What about VPN?
Virtual private network. I get the feeling you're trying to test my acumen.
I am trying to test your acumen.
Technical.
I am.
Okay.
What about RTO?
Wow. This is a coincidence. You ever have those feelings where all the tumblers in the universe synchronize and things just come together, like
sort of like deja vu
all over again, but more like a Steven Spielberg movie. Things just happen.
Sort of like deja vu.
You can say that again. I thought I just did. Okay. Yes.
Sort of like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Christopher Nolan movie. Which one are you talking about?
The one where everything keeps turning upside down.
No, that's Inception. That's the one where you go into somebody's dreams. You might be talking about another Christopher Nolan movie, a lesser known movie called I can't remember the name of it. Memory.
Memorable.
No, Memory. See, I can't. You see what I'm doing there? I can't remember the name.
You can't remember.
I can't remember the name, but it has to do with memory. It's a guy who keeps like writing stuff permanently on his arm because he forgets immediately things that happened moments ago. I can't remember it. Well, I'm not going to look it up.
Not ringing a bell.
His face rings.
Not ringing a bell.
His face rings a bell. And his
name is Pavlov.
Let's just do this one time. I'll just do punchlines. Ready? Did you know this man? No, but his face rings a bell. Okay. All right. And then that's just the middle punchline. There is a punchline at the end as well, which goes like this. Did you know this man? No, but he's a dead ringer for his brother. His face rings a bell. He's a dead ringer for his brother. I'll tell you that
very
offline nice. Sometime.
Very nice.
Okay. RTO.
The setup has got to be this. The setup is either Pavlov or Quasimodo, right?
Quasimodo, more like, but with no arms. His face rings the bell. He got the job. He just slipped. There was moisture. It was early. There was condensation. Hey, you brought up RTO. That's very, very good.
I did bring up RTO.
RTO. Okay. Return to the Omni. No, it's
Return to Orion.
Orion. Okay.
Return to
me, and the O is silent.
There you go.
That's it. No. RTO, you brought that up. That's Robert Thomas Orange.
Or Orwell.
Orwell? It's Orwell? Orwell. Recovery time objective. That's what that stands for.
There you go.
Recovery.
That sounds like something we should be covering.
We are covering it. We're going to start talking about it right now. Recovery time.
Okay.
Recovery time objective. You just got to ask yourself a question. You say self, or use your name, and say how long, not how much, but how long can we afford to be down before we absolutely need to be back up again and running? Okay. And it's a simple question, but it's a very complicated answer, because if you're talking about your business, you have to ask yourself, you got to ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? That's Ronald Reagan doing Clint Eastwood. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Again, ransomware. That's what brought this whole thing up, because ransomware is not back. It was really never gone. Still,
it was never gone, but we're seeing it in the news. Ransomware is and malware, et cetera, is starting to make a comeback, especially because of the what's happening in Eastern Europe.
Well, that's part of it too, but it's always been there for some reason. Maybe it's not happening to major medical centers right now. Maybe it's not happening to school districts or businesses. But again, as we've emphasized before, again and again, it's not just about being a keen IT director and putting safeguards in place to make sure you don't get it, but you have to educate your users to not click on anything that doesn't seem. It's real simple. You don't recognize it, don't click on it. If you're not expecting a document from a Nigerian prince, don't click on the document, because that just opens the door for this sort of thing. And suddenly your business is being held hostage, which is not really a cool thing, especially when they start asking for money in cryptocurrency, which you may not have access to, or it's not readily available. And guess what? We're down. And now we have to go through the process of paying a ransom. And how do we get this done? And who am I talking to? Because everyone else seems to be shrugging their shoulders.
Right.
So again, we go back, have a solid backup plan in place. But again, more importantly, you have to sit down with everyone in the business that's in charge of something and figure out what your RTO is. At what point in time is your business losing money? At what point in time between being down do you have to absolutely get back online? And
you mentioned point in time, so you also have to ask, at what point should we be storing our information?
Well, yeah, backing it up. Exactly. That's another acronym. It's called RPO. Robert Peter Objective. There, top that. Objective. Stands O. The O is objective. Recovery point objective is how much data can we afford to lose or be behind, or ask yourself, how current is the backup? Now that goes back to the IT director. How often are we making backups? In other words, when you sit down and try to figure out what your recovery time objective is, and then figure out, well, we figured that out, it's going to take us X amount of time to get back up and running. All right. Can we do X minus 1 instead of X amount of time? Because whether it's 5 hours or whether it's 2 hours or whether it's 2 days or whether it's 2 weeks, you have to figure out how long is it going to take before we start losing money, that we can't sustain business continuity. And that's the key here. That's what's important. So, and again, how far back can we go that we can recover the data? Well, when was the last backup that we need to put back in? When was the last incremental backup taken that's going to happen? Is it yesterday's data entry, or transactions? Is it the one from this morning at 8 o'clock? Well, nothing is ever going to be clean and go as planned. You can only hope for the best, but you got to put the plan in place. Otherwise, you're going to be going through what I like to call the 6 stages of grief, which are typically applied to, I don't know, moving, breakup, death, and the
right, yeah,
sort of thing.
Some sort of loss.
Yes. Yeah. So we find ourselves. I'm going to do this because this went out, and I'm going to go for those people who were here or watching and didn't get the email. There's number 1 is denial, and I'll wait till you finish drinking before I say what. It's not just a river in Egypt, okay? Denial.
That's the Amazon.
When you find out that you are now, your data and your system is being held hostage, and then you become angry, and you don't know who to be angry at, the attacker or yourself. And then bargaining is number 3. You're wondering, gee, I wonder when I go to the CEO, do we have enough money to pay the attacker? And then you start thinking, okay, I've heard stories the attacker doesn't send you anything and just takes your money. Oh, wait, he's going to want cryptocurrency. Oh, man. And then we move to number 4, because after you go through all that, you're just depressed. And then what happens is I just thought of another acronym that's applicable here, but I'm not going to say it out loud. And then finally you go, okay, this has happened. You've accepted it. I haven't accepted that it's ransomware, but I've accepted that we're in this situation. And then you try to find meaning if you become introspective on this, and you try to find meaning. And then you might be trying to find a job.
Probably.
Yeah. So to avoid having to go through this, you as the IT director, go to the CEO before any of this happens. We do the Wayback Machine or drive the DeLorean at 63 miles an hour or 53 and go back.
As long as the flux capacitor is
exactly, and you can get that true story sideline.
You can get
one.
Yeah,
you can order it from AutoZone. It's in their
That's
catalog.
Right. Yeah,
flux capacitor. Anyway, RTO and RPO, recovery time objective. How long would it take us? So we don't have to go through those 6 stages of grief. How long would it take us to get back up and running? And you sit down with your bean counters. You sit down with your marketing people. You sit down with your sales staff or your vice president of sales and the CEO and your IT guy. And you figure out what is the longest we could be down without hurting the company to the point of it being irreparable. The breaking point. All right. And you've established the timeline. So you all say, okay, IT director, how long is it going to take you to get back based on what we have and what we're doing? And again, this is 3 different levels. We talked about this at the last webinar, the levels of which your company operates at and how much hardware and software they have invested and what their resources are. The more resources you have, i.e. a cloud, chances are you're going to get back online faster. You're going to get back up and running a lot faster. So that being said, you figured that out. Then RPO. Well, once you bring us back online, how far back is current now? What is the new current state of our system? When were those transactions backed up? And we move forward from there, or we just pick up where we left off and then come back and fill in the blanks later. But at least we're back up and running. So you figure out RTO and RPO, and you've established those objectives, and then you introduce AIP, Active Image Protector, because as we talked about last week, you have your Hyper Recovery Live, you have in cloud standby, and we're not going to go and explain all that. For those of you who don't know what that is, go back to the last webinar. We explained that in in
6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago in very vague terms. So you'll have to pick up, call us or email us. But no, it's enough there to warrant a good understanding of what it is we provide in terms of software, in terms of your backup solution, your backup and recovery, or backup and disaster recovery solution. So again, a lot of it's dependent on what your resources are. But the fact of the matter is, with AIP, you're going to reduce that recovery time objective. So you set the recovery time objective for 24 hours. Well, we're going to shave quite a bit of time off of that because of the tools that are included in Active Image Protector. Hyper-V Recovery, in-cloud standby, vStandby if you're limited to on-premise hardware. But if you have the cloud, we can get everybody back up and running. It may cost you more if you're just using the cloud for storage, ideally, but you can establish machines up there and reroute everyone to be working off the cloud. And if you like it, it's a migration, almost like you made the plan ahead of time. But if you are more comfortable with being able to manage the hardware on premise, well, then there's ways you can bring it back. But in the meantime, at least you're back up and running. So go ahead.
Oh, so I was just thinking, let's say the ransomware, you've been attacked. For whatever reason, you can't pay the ransom or you refuse to pay the ransom, and some sort of malware is unleashed into your system.
Well, that's the ransomware itself. What you do is you go back to the point. Again, we're trying to figure out with the RPO, the recovery point objective, because sometimes you may not have a choice. How much data can we afford to lose? How can we recover all of last week's transactions? Because I think the ransomware and the malware, or the malware and the malware came down when somebody on the third floor clicked that email on Wednesday. So,
and if it strips everything down, a small business that only has a couple of computers or just one server, if it strips everything down to basically a brand new box, can I rescue what I have stored?
It depends on the level of the ransomware. I'm not very well versed on exactly the machinations of how they've designed the software. I just know you're locked out.
But what I'm asking is, can I use Rescue Boot?
Rescue Boot, yeah, you can use Rescue Boot if you have to restore. Yes, that is a path if we're talking about a small business that has a limited amount of hardware. Yeah, you can use Rescue Boot to boot the system up and then pick from the backup, because you've obviously got a solid backup plan, so you've isolated your backup, and your last incremental was taken the day before the attack. Then you can restore from the day before the attack back to that system, and it overwrites everything. So that's on a scale where it's a 1-to-1, or just you have a closet that you keep cool that has a couple of servers and boxes in it. Maybe you don't have a cloud for storage. Again, we provide the tools that you need to recover, all right, to a specific point in time recovery, a boot point, so to speak. But if you're running hypervisors, and if you're running, that's a good thing, because you can always come back on a hypervisor. But if you're running a hypervisor in the cloud, even better, because you're switching everything over to an isolated point off-site, in cloud, so to speak. And that's just a big data center. Somebody predicted that there's really no need to have a personal computer at home anymore. All we need is terminals, because everything is run from the outside. Kind of like this webinar, we're not running. We're using our computers to do this, but the reality is everything is stored out there somewhere. And when we're done and I've got to edit this, I download it and then I work on it from my computer, and then I upload it again, and we get it posted. So, yeah. The bottom line is AIP, Active Image Protector from Actify, provides you the tools needed to minimize or lower or reduce your recovery time objectives. And as far as your recovery point objectives, that all is dependent on, and you brought up a good point, what if you were infected, during the last two incremental backups taken? Well, then you're going to have to go to the one before that. But you got to decide, how far back can I go before we've lost everything from that point? So if we've been running incrementals 5 times a day, every day of the work week, and we are infected on Wednesday, it would behoove us to restore from Tuesday's incremental backup.
All right. So for those folks that don't want to go back, and I'm not sure why they wouldn't, because these are highly entertaining, but for those folks that don't want to go back to a previous webcast or go back to last year's when we covered ransomware, what are some of the features that Active Image Protector has?
Oh, so, well, again, Hyper Recovery Live, which means that you can get the backup, whether it's an incremental or a full baseline backup, because those incrementals are always associated with a full baseline backup. They're just the changes that have been recorded. What it does is that it brings that backup into a virtual machine and starts it up, and you're free to use it while the backup is being recovered as a full on. Now remember, this is a backup that is emulating a virtual machine. For all intents and purposes, it is a virtual machine, but we have to recover, and we are either recovering back to a server box. We're restoring to a server box, and depending on how much data you have, that's what we're doing. The nice thing about that is that even when you're recovering, all the changes that you're making in the process still while the backup is being restored, those changes that are being made while we're waiting for it, it's really, if you keep thinking about it, you're kind of like, it sounds like a dog eating its own tail. I don't understand. No, the reality is that you are recovering at the same time you're still running from that backup, and the changes are being saved and recorded, and that gets restored.
And it's happening in real time.
It's happening in real time, and that information is going to get restored once you get that backup restored to wherever it is you want it, whether it's a virtual machine or a physical machine. The other is the vStandby, which is for on-premise, or in cloud standby, which means you've got virtual machines up in the cloud. So if you've got vStandby, virtual standby is what the V stands for. And basically it's your backup sentry, your backup guard that is ready to take over in the event that the guard standing at post somehow is compromised. And that guard steps in and takes his place because he has become disabled in some way, shape, or form and can't fulfill his duty. You have a standby. And that standby, again, that standby virtual machine is as current as the last incremental backup that was taken. So you switch over, flick of a switch, you're waiting, the time that you're waiting is your boot time to get that up and running. But it is a virtual machine. It is taking up space. All it is turned off at that point, but it's always getting updated. So you have what we call boot points if we're talking about a standby virtual machine. But they always snapshots is the proper term if you're taking snapshots of a virtual machine while you're using it, and you say, okay, we've done some things. I'm taking a snapshot because if for some reason this machine decides that it can't boot again, we can always revert back to a previous snapshot. But it's interchangeable jargon, but it functions in a different way. So those are the two most useful tools that we provide that will reduce your recovery time objectives and help you manage your recovery point objectives in order to maintain business continuity. And that's what's important. And what's even more important is you keep your job.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to go out and work for another job, if you know what I mean. So,
right.
PYR, I'm going to introduce some new acronyms for you, okay? PYR,
okay.
Plan your recovery.
Okay.
RYD, recover your data. And
okay.
KYJ, keep your job. And if there's anything there you'd like to add, because I just made these up. CYA. Well, it's how about this one? CYBA, and B stands for business.
There you go.
Yeah, and again, solid.
Cover your business acumen.
There you go. Cover your business acumen. Yes. Thank you, Clarice.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so there we are, and there it is, and Bob's your uncle.
Okay. Well, that was quick and fairly painless.
Living on the veg, man. Living on the veg.
Living on the veg.
Living on the veg.
Actually, I was thinking about that intro again. Wow.
No redundancy here.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up this edition of Meet and Geek. Robert, thank you so much. You mentioned that you are uploading a copy of this webcast. Where can our viewers?
At www.actify.com. All our webcasts are there.
All right.
We'll have
social media
links
presence
on both our Facebook, Actify USA, and Twitter, Actify USA, social media accounts. You'll have links, copies of the emails and the posts that we draw from for these webinars are also there too. So it'll help enlighten you. But go ahead, go back, hit like. We appreciate it because we like to be liked.
Yes,
but it doesn't. I don't let it dominate my day if you dislike. So,
no, it dominates mine.
Oh, does it? Well, okay. Well, it goes. There's not one of us that would gladly give his life for this webcast. Oh wait, what's it? Oh, no, I'm sorry. There is one. There is one.
There is one. There is always one.
Always one. There is but another one. That's Kermit.
All right.
Kermit the Frog doing Yoda. I do impressions of other people doing impressions.
I noticed that.
All right. Very good.
All right. So that'll wrap things up for this time around.
Yes.
I don't want to say month because it may be another 6 weeks before we see each other again.
I don't want to do 6 weeks.
So until next time, everyone take care and back your stuff up.
And keep it backed up because you don't want to become a victim of ransomware.
That's right.
Plan your work.
All right, Robert.
Plan. There you go.
Robert from Actify. Thank you so much.
Matt. We'll talk to you soon.
Right, we'll see you.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.